So, welcome, sweet souls. How are we all doing out there? So, this is the Voice podcast, the voice of integrity, compassion, and empathy. And I've been really guided to just literally sit my butt down and share what is going on right now. So, we are literally a day before the full moon of Gemini. And this is going to be an exceptionally powerful shift of us individually and collectively. And so, what I want to talk about is lots of what is going on, the untruths, the truths, the alignment, and what we are here and what we are being guided to do. Okay. So, where do I start? It's a good picture. So, Gemini, full moon. This is all about communication and authenticity. And what's been showing up is about really getting us to understand our truth. What is actually our truth? And this isn't what we have been told. This isn't our belief systems that we have incorporated in our lifetime, but also what is generational belief systems and patterns and conditions that go handed down the generations. Not only is it in our subconscious mind, which plays out for 98% of our thought and actions. So we think we're in control, we think we know why we're doing things. I can challenge you here now and actually say, are you? Do you? Really? And so we have to start to really understand ourselves on a deeper level. Yeshua, know thyself, the oracles of Delphi, know thyself. What was that really meaning? What that's really calling us and what this whole energy and everything is shifting right now is to get us to understand who the fuck we really, really are. There's going to be a few F's in this one, I think, because it feels like very heavily empowered truth coming through right now. And so we have our subconscious mind playing out for 98% of our thoughts and our actions that has been conditioned through generations and generations. We have our our unconscious body that in our blood, in our bones, in the water that flows through our body as plasma in the myofascia that is basically carrying these belief systems. It's carrying trauma, generational trauma, our mitochondria that lives within every single cell that is the fuel for why we do and what we do is hands down trauma through the feminine line, through the mother lineage. Okay. And when we really acknowledge the trauma that the feminine has been through, we've got to really understand that level of suppression, oppression, that victim energy that sits so deep in our nervous systems, in our mitochondria, in our blood, on our bones. And this speaks for women as we are the carriers through this, but also men carry this through too. We carry it through deeper into our wombs as women. Men, they tend to carry more within their gut and their mental health. Okay. And so women may merge more for the menstrual health issues, whereas men may be more the mental health issues. Okay. And so what is happening? And from my own experiences, we've got a huge heart awakening, which sounds fan-dabby-doozy, doesn't it? Right? It sounds lovely, right? But to do that, we have to go through all the shadows, all the shite that sits in our systems, in our belief system, within our whole energetics that has us in fear and in separation. And so heart awakening, yes, it's an expansion of the heart and opening up. But if we're doing that consciously, great. But if we're doing that with a huge amount of fear and resistance that sits very deep in our body, that will create a lot of pressure. It will create anxiety. You'll feel palpitations. You'll feel sickness. You'll feel a heaviness. You'll feel tension and overwhelm and actual physical issues with your heart and your blood if you're really not tuned in to what is going on consciously, if you're really suppressing yourself, suppressing your emotions, not taking responsibility for your thoughts and your actions. And the problem that we have with people that don't want to take responsibility is because they fear judgment. and the shame of that. So they'd rather not touch it or get involved with it. So they don't take responsibility and therefore they project their shit onto other people. Okay. And then you have on the other side the empaths. The empaths that literally suck up everything, like the whole shit, like everything. Their livers are like the sponge, their kidneys are in overdrive, and their adrenal glands are like, holy moly. You know, their nervous systems have been set up to absorb everything around them, to try and be in control, to try and bring in peace, to try and bring in harmony, because they hadn't felt safe. This is a learned, subconscious, unconscious pattern that they have created. Equally, they have probably conditioned to think it's their fault, that there's something wrong with them, that they're not enough, and that's their role to do. So they take on the responsibility of the ones that aren't wanting to take responsibility. And so we have this merge of shame and guilt, all kind of sludging down in the deep, dark depths of what we see as humanity, that not many people want to bring any air and light to. Okay. So we have a way of ignoring it and being busy to just kind of hopefully of not be in any kind of connection with this. Okay. And, shame and guilt have the same frequency of lead. So we are going through those filaments, the sludge and the shit that goes through the radiator after time that just blocks everything up. That's what we're navigating. This is what the massive moon is magnetizing and trying to pull out of our systems, out of our minds, out of our body, so we can really be the truth of who we really, really are. And our truth is love, unconditional love, joy, and peace. That is our truth. Everything else is the illusion. However, it's the illusions, it's the fears that what we have an emotional response to that creates our reality, that creates this matrix, this illusion. And so we're heavily entwined with all of this. And so we are here as souls to break free of everything that has us out of our sovereignty, out of our power, where we've given away our power and through religion, through governments, through money, through being industrialized as a soul, and everything that has taken us from disconnection as a human, as a connection of spirit to earth and the natural alignment that is earth and her cycles and her seasons. And so I'll go from that perspective. We live in a world that's like a superficial structure. We're living in a world where we're just constantly on the go, where we have natural light, not natural light, we have electricity. So we're not living to the natural light, we're not living to the moon, and we're not living to the sun. And we're not recognizing the shifts and the change of seasons to allow ourselves to adapt, to be in alignment, to be in flow with this. And so I'm feeling that overwhelm, anxiety, tiredness, fatigue is all calling for us to come back and slow down, to connect to ourselves, to connect to good food, to slow down and consolidate our energy and realize where and what is taking our energy forces and what is taking us out of alignment. And I know for me, social media is a huge thing because it's wired into my business. There is this neurological wirement that feel like I'm entangled with social media. And many people will be from a dopamine perspective. If you're miserable or you're not in a role that doesn't bring you life, if you're not getting natural sunlight and your serotonin, which is also because of our food and everything else that suppresses the serotonin, which is our happy hormone, and our dopamine and our amino acids and our building blocks. There's glyphosate, really the pesticides that blocks our serotonin, which is that is the key neurotransmitter of our brains in our whole endocrine system and our hormones. If we're not getting this naturally and creating it through our body and through sunlight, we are looking for some other kind of fix. And the scrolling, the rapid eye movement that we do from our phones is creating a dopamine short fix. So we're becoming addicted, attached, dependent on these systems as well, on the phone and social media. And so for me, I'm really recognizing I need to detangle my whole neural system that has me playing like a puppet, thinking, oh, the more I do, and the more likes, and the more views, and everything else, something will get some form of reward. It's like a dancing puppet to some form of screen that hopefully will spit out some form of bloody reward for me. It's like, this is not healthy. And as much as I want to be able to share and help and support people, I have to do this that's really alignment to my neural system and choose when I step up and share information, not to be in the performance nonsense, but do it from my own authentic self and in my own authentic way, which again, this is what Gemini and the full moon is trying to show us and to encourage us to do. And so what came up for me as it was being sort of guided to come sit and just share this with you, and bear with me on this one. Sit with this and allow just a perspective to be shared to you. Now, I am not saying this for you this to be your truth, okay? I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to just literally share a perspective, okay? And if anything this does, it breaks a little pattern in your mind to go, let me think about this one. Let me self-inquire. Let me ask some questions about this rather than just accepting it as my truth. Okay. So for Christmas, right? What is that all about? Really? So for me, I'm feeling quite disengaged from the whole thing and want to simply just come back into myself, which is the natural process of wintering, to come back in, to consolidate your energy, to hibernate. This is what we're meant to be doing. Yet our systems have us doing the complete opposite. And so what we've got is our nervous system and everything that's very innate wisdom is calling us to come in and slow down, to nourish, to restore one's energy like nature does. That's what nature does, is let go of the leaves in autumn. It's now asking for the soil and the replenishment and all the energy that it needs back into the roots and let go what it doesn't need anymore. This is what we're meant to be doing. And yet here we are with Christmas, taking us on a really commercialized way of just being busy. And so our whole nervous system is all out of sync. And so you'll be feeling that again with overwhelm, stress, inflammation. If you think if rubbing rubbing against ourselves in the wrong way, this will create friction, this creates heat, and this creates inflammation. And what we have to do, and this is where the interesting thing was really come through for me to share, is like, actually, Christmas isn't real. Yeshua, also known as Jesus, was not born on the 25th of December. In fact, he was born probably more so in March time, from what I can feel and experience in that. But he wasn't born in Christmas time or 25th of December. What you do have is the 21st of December, which is a winter solstice. And this winter solstice, this would have been recognized with the different equinoxes, key times to celebrate the cycles of Earth, the sacred cycles of Earth. Winter solstice, you've got the summer solstice, you have the autumn and the spring equinox, and then you have the different ones in between that as well. And because we used to live to the food, we used to live to the earth, Everything was to do with the cycles of Earth to the moon and the sun. That is our truth. That is our pure alignment. And okay, so I got slightly interrupted by the pooch there. What I was saying is that, to summarize this, that ultimately what is our truth is actually live into the cycles of Earth. And the time when we would have lived to the land, we would have lived to harvesting our own food, and we would have had that innate wisdom and that connection to our earth. And this has become immensely segregated through the cycles of that. And religion, how that has put its imprint on the land with churches, with festivals that would have been naturally what we would call not as classed as pagan now. And we've got the calendar. We have the used to be the moon cycles would have been every 28 days would have been a new month. Whereas that got changed. And, you know, many things, the Industrial Revolution, that's come through, that has taken us away from our natural rhythm and flow. This has industrialized us as a soul and become even more enslaved to money. And ultimately, what is happening is that we are being called to remember our truth, to remember who we truly are, to know who we are as a soul and as a human on this planet. And to remember that we are love, and we are joy, and we are peace, and we are all one. When you look at our bodies and you go right down to the cellular level, you go to the mitochondria, and through the mitochondria, there is light. Light. And that's in every one of us. And when you go from such a micro level, when you come to that point of light, we see this whole macro aspect of all of us, that we are this oneness, we are this unity, we are this light and consciousness when we truly start to connect to our bodies rather than our heads, and to really start to understand who we truly are. And we will be witnessing, we will be experiencing these shifts, these patterns and belief systems that has us out of our power, out of our sovereignty, and in disempowerment and into victim energy. And we'll see that with money, we see it with the patriarchal system, we see it with our governments, we will see it through religion, and how all distortions of our truth will start to come up to the surface. And we will not be able to avoid this. And there's a lot of things in spirituality where there's a lot of, like I say, love and light, which ultimately is our truth. But we've got a shitload of shadow to get through, right? And if we just stay in one, if we can navigate our shadows, but with self-love and self-acceptance and compassion and curiosity without the judgment, we can start to get inside ourselves and understand ourselves and let our untruths come through the energy that is the truth that's rising up to show us what this is. And no bugger's going to come and save us, right? We talk about Christ. There's different terms that Christ is going to come back and save our souls. No fucker's going to come and save our soul, okay? It's for us to do that. There's a whole load of universal energies coaching us, trying to get us to our truth and to finally claim back our power. This is why we're seeing so much out in the collective of all the distortions of the truth and the greed and the corruption. But when we keep buying into the story that we are separated, that through religion, through sex, through geography, then we will continue to feed this matrix of fear, separation, and disempowerment. And so what we will be guided energetically to is to understand that and to see that for what it is. That is the journey. So there's huge amounts of solar wind, solar energy coming through. I see the power that is coming up from the consciousness that is Earth, that is Lady Gaia, coming up to remind us to, so we, a sense of remembrance, but we have to do this through our bodies. And when we're not doing this consciously, we're going to have a whole load of physical and emotional and mental issues, like I explained earlier, through menstrual health or, through mental health and anything really, pain and disease, is when we have become disconnected to ourselves in some way. I actually see that the language of how the body is trying to seek reconnection is through the language of pain and disease. This is the whole love to heal concept, the listen, observe, visualize, empower, how I've seen that through my clinic and my work. And what has come through me recently is the real sense of loneliness and not being seen, not being truly seen for who I truly am, and being witnessed and honored from that. And I see that from myself, but I also see that as the light of the feminine, the Sophia Christ. This is the work that has really been shown to me through channeling and through connection to the body. And Sophia Christ is the mother of all creation, who lives within us, within every single one of us. But for women, we carry that within our wombs, highly protected, and only accessible through our hearts, through a pure, open, sovereign heart. And this loneliness, I could see it and feel it into like what I call the interstitial fluid. So it's the fluid that runs externally to the cells themselves, and then it's a matter of communication between them to find that balance, to give what it needs, the cell, and take what it doesn't anymore. And I could feel loneliness lives within that structure of our bodies. And I could feel it throughout my whole of my body. And I do feel that we will be moving through loneliness and the darkness of the winter coming through. That really does bring that up. And Christmas, unfortunately, really compounds that when we're we've lost people, where we're not in relationships that really are an alignment to us. And I recognize that. You sort of see there's this huge pressure that there needs to be all these big families and massive get-togethers. But if you've had to go through, which what I have done is through a whole transformation process of going through trauma and having to step your healthy boundaries in place, not everybody likes that. Not everybody can deal with that. Not everyone can deal with the truth. And I can have compassion for that, but it doesn't mean I have to stay in those environments where it's not serving. And that's the same for everybody else. As we start bringing in, we're going to be starting to see relationships, situations where we're just not in alignment with our truth anymore. And so that will be coming up through this massive new heart awakening that's coming through. And we need to be able to have space for ourselves and time for ourselves to rest, to truly allow ourselves to connect into our bodies, to find that inner safety, to find that inner comfort and grace. Because if we're constantly being pushed and doing stuff outside of that alignment, we are going to create a huge amount of stress and anxiety and discoherence in our bodies. And with discoherence comes ill health in many forms. And because the body isn't communicating to itself properly, it's not communicating to the blueprint that is health. So it's working on a really heightened, stressed environment. And with stress, it can change your epigenome expression. This, so how your body is expressing itself from a health perspective. So what I'm trying to do with this is really weave in the essence, what's going to be happening, what is happening, what has been happening, but it's coming up more to the surface to be truly seen. And there's been a huge undercurrent for this, certainly since 2020, where I saw the first heart awakening, which was COVID, and we're now moving into the second one. And it will be interesting how this happens, because for light to exist, it also brings in a shadow. And we would be interested to see how this plays out, certainly in the next 6 to 8 months, for ourselves and as the planet of humanity. And like I say, the calling is for us to really recognize that we are one. When we start to have horrible thoughts or negative thoughts or actions, we're hurting ourselves at the same time. And I'll explain that from a simple level, is that from a body, if you're having certain thoughts towards somebody else, your body doesn't know any different between you and that person or any other thought, or even the situation that you've got playing out in your head and the conversations and the angst that you have going on that isn't actually happening, but for some reason the mind's going through that. Your body is responding to that every single thought that you have. And anger especially has a very negative shutdown effect on a cellular level. And it takes quite some time for it to repair itself after that. So if you're equally having negative thoughts about somebody, the body doesn't know and it's affecting your body. So when you act and think in certain ways that isn't love, joy, or peace, or compassion, or empathy, or forgiveness, we recognize that that's something that's happening in our bodies. And that's not me saying just accept some shit, okay? That not at all. That's far from it, because you're not learning your self-worth either from that. So sometimes you do have to get angry. You do have to feel that rage, because that is the alchemy of self-love coming up saying, I deserve better. I am worthy of so much more. So, but you can't stay in that energy. You have to go through the whole process of the grief, of what to learn from it, what to take from it, the discernment of what is yours and what is not. Is it your responsibility or is it somebody else's? And then you can go through the whole process of where's that inner gold? Where's the learning? Where's the insight? Where's the emotional intelligence that has come from this whole situation and experience? And then through the process of forgiveness, it enables you to let go, to bring closure. And forgiveness, I say this, is about acceptance of the unacceptable, not to be accepted again. This is the process. This is the inner wisdom and gold that we need to be going through. And so we need to connect to all this deep, deep shadow stuff to become much more conscious, much more aware, and this emotional intelligence. And more aware we become of ourselves and why we think what we do, to understand where the fear level of is that and what is behind that is hugely powerful. And you are not your thoughts, only unless you choose them to be. So you have the choice to whether to continue that thought and take it into an emotional, chemical, hormonal, physical response, or you break that pattern through that consciousness of space to go, do I choose this thought? Do I choose love? Do I choose joy? Do I choose peace? Do I choose abundance? And you might not know how to shift from that, but through the consciousness of conscious choice, your body, your mind will naturally start to go, well, this is the choice. This is what we're going to create. This is what we're going to see. And this is what I'm going to connect to. So you're transforming your whole frequency from literally dialing from one radio station to another. And yes, you will float backwards and forwards. But if you're more conscious you are, the more you can shift and change those. So there's much that we can do as we're going through this, as we feel like possibly our whole world is falling apart, internal world and the external world and the chaos of it. But it's meant to. It's meant to dismantle what isn't serving us anymore, our patterns, our beliefs and actions. And so it will come through, and it can be really uncomfortable, especially if we resist this and don't take responsibility for it. And like I say, no one's here to come and save us. This is about us using and taking full action on our free will and start to make these conscious choices through awareness. And like I was talking about with the empath situation, the empath, possibly narcissist, or the empath where they have taken all that responsibility because that's what made them feel safe, that's what made them feel in control. They're going to have to start handing back those responsibilities. They're going to have to start learning what, through healthy boundaries and doing the inner work to feel safe within, to be able to let go of these patterns, these responsibilities, to put it into the void, to enable those who need to take responsibility for that to step up and take it. They might not do, but they can't do it unless we release that responsibility. If this is making sense, we need to hand it back to the center table to go, it's not mine to carry. Therefore, now you need to step in to take responsibility. But that's obviously a choice from them, but they will not be able to do it if we're still carrying it. So I feel that there's going to be a huge shift as empaths of think, look at the world going, oh my God, what can I do? And how can I transform? And feeling completely helpless. You've got to discern what is yours and do that from your own inner world and for your own sort of extended, like people who you're interacting with. Start recognizing what's your responsibility and what isn't, and hand it back that isn't yours. And that will be a massive tipping point for humanity when the empaths do that. Because you are literally going, take responsibility for yourself. And this is a huge energetic shift when we start doing this. And don't underplay the power that you have by when you change your inner world, because you will energetically be connecting to all this consciousness, and you're creating a shift. And we only need 3% of conscious changes, people stepping up into consciousness, to be a tipping point for humanity. And so the change is you. You're the change. So you need to be the change. And we have to take responsibility for ourselves and do that inner work. It isn't all about love and light. You need the love and light to navigate the lantern of your heart through your shadows, to find what shit you're carrying and shift it, basically, to alchemize it. This is what we're here to do. And I keep getting popping up in my head, and as I was going to start talking about it, and it was about the whole Christmas concept and Yeshua and the distortions that sit in that itself, and how the story had it that Mary was a virgin. She wasn't a virgin. She was a virgin womb, of pure womb, to enable the birth of Yeshua, the seed of Yeshua. And so she was doing many practices to enable her womb to be pure from generational trauma. She wasn't some young, innocent lass that suddenly had the heavens come down and go, this is what you're going to do, lovely. No, she was a fully empowered woman, following the rose lineage, following this deep Sophia Christ lineage that we see through Isis and Hathor and many, many generations before. They were a community fully aware of what was happening, fully conscious. And she did this work to ensure her womb enabled Yeshua to be the son of Sophia Christ. And so there's a distortion there. There's a story of a woman, or just being, disempowerment there. Okay, Mother Mary was exceptionally powerful woman. Mary Magdalene, yet another powerful woman. And she was equal to Yeshua. And she followed these, to keeping the womb pure and the rose lineage and the protection of the earth. and Lady Gaia. And again, the story's her that she was some kind of whore. And we have to start realizing the distortions that run through the stories that we are told, how the Bible has been rewritten, I think 44 times maybe. Why is it being rewritten each time? What is the stories that they don't want to be heard? And I just feel with Christmas and the whole charade that goes around that, which many of you may be feeling quite discombobulated or disconnected from, probably feeling like a bit of a humbug yourself. And don't judge yourself for that. To recognize that this is actually some form of you're disconnecting to the narrative and the told narrative. Somewhere in your body is going, this isn't alignment to me anymore. This isn't my truth. And so when you start to sort of detach yourself with what you may feel like withdrawing, which I call more consolidation, give yourself that permission to do that, to let go of the word of should, because should is the shame word, it's that low frequency of lead, and really honor yourself for what you truly need. And you're not here to please anyone else. Do this for yourself, and that isn't selfish. So you may well, without knowing it, be doing this work of disconnection of the untruths to let them go. So be gentle and kind to yourself with all of this that I've shared. And that's all I can really say. And through my feelings of how powerful this full moon is going to be, it's had me hugely tearful, but releasing so much, not in a grief way, just in fact acknowledging grief, the disconnect to our truth and to love, unconditional love, not the love that gets bounded around most of the time, unconditional love, the love that you give and seek nothing back. It just becomes a radiance of light that comes from your heart. A huge different frequency altogether. Often people give love because they want it back. They want it proved. They want to feel validated. That isn't love. That's not unconditional love. And so even the word love will be called out to be discerned what is true and what is not. And I do feel we're going to have quite a bumpy road as individually and collectively, especially if we're very outwardly looking at the world and feel really disempowered by it. Again, we have to be really mindful that what we pay attention to, what we give our energy to, we're creating. So if there's something you're not liking, don't feed it with your attention. And for that negative to exist, so does the positive. So find the positive, find the empowerment, find the level of peace, the level of love, the opposite of what you are seeing. Because we are the creators and we are the observers. We observe things, how we observe it, how we perceive it, and how the emotion that we put to that is what we create. So we have to be really conscious of ourselves. And that's not easy to do when we're busy. When you're running around like a headless chicken, A to B, trying to get everything done, you are not in consciousness. We aren't in consciousness. It's only when we're still and in breath where we can, and connection to our bodies and then to the earth, where we become truly more conscious. And even then, we're on the road of curiosity, of connection, to understand ourselves. And that understanding comes from our heart. It comes from the connection of our body, not through our mind. The mind needs to become the curious observer to understand and to be curious of ourselves, to be able to move through the void, move through that dark womb, to understand, to allow ourselves to let all these parts of ourselves to fall into this void, into the black hole, the fear of death, even letting go of that feeling, the death of self, the death of identity, to really know thyself, to really come out the other side. You kind of like lose yourself to know thyself. But a lot of us fear that letting go of self. It's like I can feel that in my body. It's like, well, if I let go, do I come back? It's very deep in ourselves. And it's this trust. And trust comes from embodiment, connection to our hearts, where we feel the truth. It's not a trustful where you just jump and hope something's going to catch you. This is about the neural system being able to surrender in trust. And it can only do that through the consciousness of our hearts. It won't do that just because we decide we're going to. So, and this work, and I will talk about Daughters of the Golden Rose, this work that I've done, like a 13-week container of channeling Sophia Light, connection to that and consciousness into our bodies, has been that journey for me to understand myself on a greater level. But most importantly, I feel coming out of it is actually finding that inner safety to move out fear. It's, that deep shock in the system through trauma, through things that's happened, but also I think it went much deeper than just even this lifetime. And so that enabled me to trust, to soften, to become more aware of if something is possibly triggering. It gave me more space to go breathe. Oh, this isn't love. This isn't my truth. What is this? What is this that's coming up? Rather than falling into it and repeating the pattern. That's the difference. I think it's just given me a greater bridge of consciousness to be able to break these patterns of fear and these belief systems. So this has been designed for women. I do want to be able to create meditations and stuff to how to support men to be able to do this work, but invert their masculinity into themselves, to connect into the feminine that's within them. I think that will be a really curious and beautiful process to do, to connect into their cosmic womb. And so, yes, if you're interested in this, if you're male, speak with me, come and contact me directly. If female, I have this Telegram group which you can come into. There's no pressure there. This is purely about women remembering to hold space for ourselves and for each other and to trust that. Because this is where I see where humanity fell, is when women inverted into themselves. Women were holding the frequency of Earth, of Lady Gaia, of this rose lineage, of just a higher frequency of unconditional love. And when that got broken, this is when humanity fell. And this is about, I think the deepest level of betrayal is woman to woman. And that's very deep into our systems, about women being able to trust women again, to not have the competition, to not have that separation. And so this feels, what I'm creating here is the foundation to creating this space, this safe space for women to remember their power and to remember the connection of one another. And I think going back to that, that's the loneliness very deep in our bodies, where we are on our own. We do feel like we're on our own when we don't have this community and this support. So I bid you farewell, beautiful souls. And what started off as a little bit like heightened rant, it's probably a bit more of a calmer perspective. But there are a lot of untruths to come up. And I just invite you to take time for yourself, to become more conscious of why you think the way you do, and give yourself that space and that time to become more conscious and to ultimately find who you truly are, which is love, joy, and peace. And yeah, So thank you for listening, and would love to hear any feedback, maybe any revelations, any belief systems, any triggers that's come up from this, because I can imagine it probably will do. So yeah, reach out, and lots of love. Take care.